Yeah. Hello. We can start. Hi from Krakow. Dzień dobry wszystkim. Mam nadzieję, że wszyscy są na miejscu, mimo że dzisiaj środa, godzina 17. Zapraszamy na degustację win z DAC Leithaberg. To niewielka rzeczka, ale bardzo istotna, historycznie istotna, o czym myślę nasi prowadzący powiedzą. No i tyle. Oczywiście wszyscy pamiętajcie o używaniu tytunów, jako że dzisiaj 16 win, okay? 4 flighty. Right, so let me introduce to you Georg Schweitzer from Burgenland, and Georg, the floor is yours. So let's start.
Oh, thank you so much, Piotr. Hello here from our side in Austria, actually in Donnerskirchen. I would even say in the heart of the Leithaberg region, because it's somehow in the middle, not exactly, but somehow, let's put it like this. I said, my name is Georg Schweitzer. I'm the managing director of Burgenland. And as you know, in Burgenland, we do have a couple of DACs, so this Districtus Austria Controllatus areas, and one of them being the Leithaberg. And this is the topic for today. And just beside me, you'll see on my left-hand side, Leo Sommer, one of the wine growers within the region of Leithaberg DAC. And he's currently leading the Leithaberg DAC organization, but it's rotated on an automatic level. So it's every time you will see Leithaberg, maybe there's somebody different popping up. And this is the good thing, because it's not always one opinion, it's a lot of opinions coming together, and the best of all is put into place and into the bottle. You will see today during the tasting. So I would like to start a little bit with theory. Sorry for that, but it has to be. Maybe Piotr, you can share the presentation, because I just see the picture. Yeah. Let's go to the slide number 3. I think it's going to be, because yeah, exactly this one. So here you can see the Leithaberg region. On the lower right corner, you see the map of Austria. Within the map of Austria, there's the light gray structure, which is Austria, of course, and we have the dark gray shadowed area here, which is the Burgenland area. Just for the people who don't know, but I don't think there's anybody not knowing where Austria is, but we are bordering, the Burgenland area is bordering in the north to Slovakia, in the east, this is the longest border, by the way, to Hungary, and in the south, a little bit to Slovenia. And the Leithaberg region is up in the north. This is the black spot you see, that's the small one in here. And just to make it a little bit more visible, we just zoomed it out, and the nice picture with the nice colors, that's the Leithaberg region. As said in the very beginning, the Leithaberg DAC, it's a definition of a wine style. So the Leithaberg DAC, it's not a region, it's a specific wine style. I will come to this later on when I talk about the varieties involved in the Leithaberg DAC. Altogether, the Leithaberg region is about 3,100 hectares in total. The Burgenland area is about 12,500 hectares. The biggest area is the Neusiedlersee area, which is on the eastern side of the Neusiedlersee. You see the blue spot on the cards, on the map in here. About 3,100 hectares is the Leithaberg region, and just in contrast to the rest, or to the overall figures of Burgenland, in this region we have the majority of white wines, which is about 55%, and the red wines about 45%. All of Burgenland, it's just the other way around. So it's 55% red wine and 45% of white wine. So we are talking here about the white wine region of the Burgenland area. And this is already one of the specific things on the Leithaberg DAC. It's the only white wine DAC within Burgenland area. From the climate point of view, I don't know how many people have been here in this area, but we talk about the Pannonian climate, which means Pannonian is let's say a climate coming from the Hungarian side. about the flat side, we talk about warm, nowadays even hot summers, so up to 40, so 40 degrees. In summer times, it's not a problem at all. And of course, it's cooling down during nighttime to 32 degrees or 33 degrees. It's quite hot even in summertime. But in wintertime, as it was like yesterday or the night from the day before yesterday to yesterday, -10, -12 degrees, easily possible. So we have a big swing in temperature from summertime to wintertime, can be almost like 50, maybe up to 60 degrees. But this is not only due to the timing or to the seasons. It's even on a daily basis. So these diurnal swings, they are quite big, and this is especially the reason here on the Leithaberg region. We have the lake, which provides us a lot of warm air for getting the grapes ripe. But on the other side, on the Leithaberg region, you see this green spotted area. This is about the forest. It's about wood. It's about a lot of vegetation going there. And from this area, a lot of cold air is coming, especially during night. So we always have, this fall winds and this upwinds. And this big diurnal swing is really, really important for us in getting the fruit side of the wine, the fruit ripe, and have a big or a great intensity of fruit in our wines. But on the other side, to really keep the acidity lively. So you will never ever see a Leithaberg wine which you're thinking, where has the acidity been going to? Because they're always living with acidity. So we have this swing between the day temperature and the night temperature, which is really important for the region. And on top of this, we have the soils. The soils are not mentioned here on this slide, but there are mainly two soils. The one is a limestone, or a special type of limestone we call Leitha. So the name Leitha comes from should we call it the river? Comes from the river Leitha, and kalk stands for limestone on the one hand side. And this Leitha kalk is a quite old soil type, and it forces the roots to really dig deep into the soil, which on the other side enables the wines to grow with the right and proper amount of nutrients, especially very mineral nutrients. And on the other side, we have a so-called mica schist, and you can see it even here in Donnerskirchen on some soils, that there are this sea fossils in there from the former times when there was still the big sea in this area, and this gives a lot of minerality to the wines. I know minerality is such a word we need to define, because you cannot taste minerality, but it's a kind of impression you get when you taste the wines. And for me personally, and please find your own way of defining minerality in a wine. For me personally, it's the smell and the taste. Don't ask me why I did it when I was young, but it's the smell when it was just raining, and then afterwards you go out into the vineyard and you smell on the stones, you somehow try to taste the stones. This special impression, this is called minerality in my understanding. But please, everybody, make your own understanding about minerality. From the varieties point of view, the easier one is the blaufraenkisch. And since end of last year, we can really say it's a 100% blaufraenkisch Leithaberg DAC. Before that, at least theoretically, it was allowed, or it has been allowed, to blend it up to 15% with Pinot Noir or St. Laurent, which was not quite often done. Actually, it was in the past already 100% blaufraenkisch, but theoretically you have been allowed to. But now it's 100% blaufraenkisch. And on the white side, we have 4 grape varieties: Neuburger, Chardonnay, Gruner, Veltliner, and Weissburgunder. So 2 indigenous Austrian grape varieties, Neuburger and Gruner Veltliner. 1 international, Chardonnay. And Weissburgunder is, for me, something in between, because it's, again, a typical variety for Austrian wines. It has been here for ages, for years, for decades even. But I know it's not an Austrian grape. But somehow we would like to call it an Austrian grape, because it's really important, especially for this region here. you will see in the flights we are going to taste all of them. So Neuburger, Chardonnay, Gruner, Veltliner, and Weissburgunder. It can be a blend out of all varieties. It can be a blend out of 2 or 3 out of those 4, or it can be single varietal wines. This is all Leithaberg DAC, and I think this makes it really, really interesting to taste the wines. You can see some other numbers here, members 57. So the Leithaberg DAC is an association. It's not mandatory to be part of this association when your winery is within the area of Leithaberg, but of course the number is increasing all the time. 57, which covers roughly, let's say, 1/3 up to 40% of the wineries existing, and it's growing as said. And one of not the newest trends, but let's say the newest trends in terms of marketing is about single vineyards. So you will see a lot of more Leithaberg DAC wines having a single vineyard mentioned on the label. In general, there are 4 features which we find in common in all the wines, regardless of white or red. It's about elegancy, it's about freshness, it's about minerality, of course, and on the other side, it's about finesse. So this is what is typically for Leithaberg, and you should be able, once you know the Leithaberg, in a blind tasting to spot the Leithaberg just because of these 4 features. So the likelihood is very big. If you taste these 4 things in a wine, then it's going to be a Leithaberg, most likely, of course. But we know worldwide there are a lot of styles of wine existing. And another thing I want to mention, this is the last thing from the theory point of view, is the wines, as well as the wine growers, they're really, really giving the time to the wines they need to develop. So we're not talking about harvest in, let's say, September, October timeframe, pressing, making the wine and being released on the next year's March, April, whatever it might be. No, the white wines, they will stay at least 1 year in the winery, and the red wines at least 2 years in the winery. So they have got time really to balance, to harmonize themselves. They mostly matured in oak, but per definition, the oak should not be the obvious thing when tasting a Leithaberg. The oak should just be supporting, as well as the primary fruit is not so important. It's about the fruitiness, of course, but it should not be the primary fruit up front in the wines. And the last thing I would want to say is ageability. You can just tick. It's about 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. The best examples even can age much longer than that. So we talk about wines, we call it in a reserve style or in a reserve way, which are released when they're just about right to drink. But to be honest, another 1 or 2 years on bottle would be really good for some wines. But then another 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, 20 years is no problem as such for those Leithaberg wines, white and red together, as mentioned before. Yeah, so this has been in a nutshell about the main features of the Leithaberg region. As said, in terms of white, a special region for Burgenland. In terms of red, it's the blaufraenkisch variety. Blaufraenkisch is the most planted variety in Burgenland area, not only on the red side, but in overall, as well as Gruner Veltliner, the most planted white wine variety in Burgenland area, from north to south. So we are talking here about 2 really, really important varieties within the Burgenland area, but a specific wine style, and this is the reason why we have this masterclass today, just focusing on the Leithaberg area. If you have any questions, by the way, I think there's the chat box. You can put it there, and we try to answer these ones as soon as they pop up. In the meantime, I would suggest that we start tasting, because this is why we are here. And maybe Piotr to switch to the next slide. We're just thinking about how to name the flights. And the flight number 1, we call it the Austrian underdog and the international superstars. So guess what it might be. We're talking about the Neuburger variety. which is a underdog in a sense, but not for Austrians. And maybe Erwin will mention about the Neuburger later on, about their consistency and how the grape looks like, and maybe how difficult they are to vinify, yeah, and the challenges in there, together with the Chardonnay in comparison. So, Erwin, please go ahead with the first flight.
Hello, everybody. My name is Erwin Tinhof, and I'm very happy to see you. Not really, but to let you introduce a little bit about the grapes and the wines from the Leithaberg DSC. The first flight is called the Austrian Underdog and International Superstars, and I think that's the typicity of our area, that we are working with grape varieties since ever in this area are very famous, and also the international grape varieties. At first, I will let you taste together with me the Neuburger Leithaberg from the winery Kirchknopf. The winery Kirchknopf, let you show the bottle, but I think a lot of them have the bottle at home. The winery Kirchknopf is a small winery near Eisenstadt and is situated in Kleinhöflein. And when you get in the wine, you can see a very golden color, which gives back the ripeness of the grapes, which were taken for this wine. The full-bodied style of this wine is also typical for the Neuburger grape variety, because it gives the wine the finesse of the melons and the apple and pears, and also the fruity juice. It's 2019, and you can see that the style of the Neuburger is not a very opulent style, but it is a style which is very good balanced with the acidity and the ripeness of the grapes. I hope you enjoy all the tasting and all the wines which you have now at the moment in your glass, and in the future together with the Leithaberg. To explain a little bit the grape variety Neuburger, I can tell you that it was maybe a crossing between two very old grape varieties typical for Austria. The one is called Silvaner, which you also know a little bit from France, and the other will be the veltliner. These both maybe are the parents of the Neuburger, because the science for the university in Vienna found that the chromosomes from the veltliner and the chromosomes from Silvaner you can find in Neuburger. In this way, they are thinking about that the crossing of these both have brought the Neuburger. The name Neuburger is maybe a story, we don't know about it exactly, but it may be the idea that it was planted in a new area down under a castle. It's called in Austria Burg. In this way, it's called Neuburger, and it's a little bit also planted in the Wachau, in the Lower Austria, but mainly in the warmer areas here in Burgenland. And Neuburger gives wonderful wines, and you can hope I can tell you also and let you see also the aroma of the wines in the second wine. It's a wine from our winery. It's Neuburger Leithaberg 2018. We pick all these grapes by hand in our vineyards, and our vineyards are organic certified since 2012. It's a very long period, and our family is making wine since maybe the 16th century. I am the 11th generation. What is typical for the Neuburger? The typical is for the Neuburger that it's a wonderful partner of a lot of dishes, special Austrian dishes, but also international dishes like fish, like cheese, but also a little bit of food. And in this way, you have here with the Neuburger Leithaberg DSC from our winery from 2018, a very fresh and a little bit salty Neuburger in the nose. You can also have a little bit aromas of the pineapple and grapefruit, and you can find the elegancy and the very fine and precise minerality. Georg told you before, the minerality is very influencing the wine style because of the Leiterkalk, and we have 100% Leiterkalk. It means this limestone gives the finesse and the acidity from the fossils, and here it's typical for the Leithaberg Neuburger 2018. Behind me, you can see different profiles from the terroir we are living here, with more or less the limestone. And I can let you show also a very good typical limestone here. It's a shell. You can see here the form of a shell, and it's up to 15 to 20 million years before, because this area before was a big sea, and after this time the sea flow away. The rest is at the moment maybe the Black Sea in the eastern parts of Europe, but the fossils give the minerality to all our wines, depending on the whites, but also for the reds. I will continue from the typical Austrian underdogs, the Neuburger, which I love very much because it's very long in our family, and it's wonderful at the moment also because it likes the hot summers. It's not a problem with dryness and gives with a thick skin in the beers. It's wonderful to develop in a very good conditions. I will go to the third wine. It's a Chardonnay, a worldwide famous grape variety, which is also here since many years, or maybe centuries too, because together with weissburgunder and Chardonnay, Georg told us it's a wonderful combination with the terroir, but also with the climate. Martin Pasler, it's also a small winery in Joyce. It's on the eastern part of the top of the Neusiedler See, and I think you can find here a little bit not only the Leithaberg, you can also find the minerality of a schist. Schist means that we can also find maybe to 90% or 85% in all our area the Leithaberg, but 10 or 15% you can find schist. And here in Joyce, in the region, also from the fourth wine, from the Chardonnay from Markus Altenburger, you can find the schist stylistic of the minerality in these wines. Here from Martin Pasler, you find a wine with a ripe apple and herbs, a little bit of citrus, also infected a little bit of a like oaky taste, which gives the wine the very international dimension. But also you can find a very fresh finish with a very good balanced acidity. And this is typical for the Chardonnay and the Leithaberg minerality too, that never the acidity is going up too high, but is even in a wonderful balance of all the styles of the wines. If you made it in big wooden barrels like ours, or you make it in small barrels like the wine from Martin Pasler, and also the last one you will have afterwards from Markus Altenburger. Here we have now the Chardonnay from Martin Pasler 2018 once again. When Georg told us before that you can find the stylistic of this wine maybe all over the world, but you can find it if you taste the Leithaberg, that it only can exist in Leithaberg. That's right, because the minerality of the Leithaberg gives the wine an identity. You can realize when you are not even here in the area, but you can realize if you have one wine of these a great area in the glass. And I think with the Chardonnay of Martin Pasler, but also from the following Chardonnay from Markus Altenburger, you can find this identity. It is an international grape variety, but it's not the style from an international Chardonnay. And I think that's the most important thing of our area, that we will find, not even us, but we will give the wine the identity from this terroir it's coming from the climate it's coming from, and also from the people who are making this wine, because it's a very personal thing to make wine, not all over in the world, but special in this area. The fourth wine will be the wine from Markus Altenburger. Markus Altenburger is also a winery in Joyce, but you can see and taste the difference of these both wines, because it's the same grape variety, it's the same village, but you can find here for me more minerality and a little bit a different method of a vinification, I think, because you have here a little bit also a mesh contact. Before the wine was pressing, you find a full-bodied wine with a fine saltiness, with ripe tannins. It's also typical for Chardonnay, but also typical for this area. And I think this is, for me, 100% schist It's not limestone and schist. In this way, you can find this acidity in a special, precise and elegant form. This is now the Chardonnay Leithaberg 2018 from Markus Altenburger. Markus Altenburger is also organic certified and makes a very natural way of vinification and also the working in the vineyards. And I think these 4 wines are special, not even for you for tasting, but also special for this area. You can find the internationality of the grape variety of the Chardonnay, but you can find the Austrian identity with Neuburger. And I think these both opponents, if you want, can be in a good glass together, because it gives you the idea which can going on from international style to regional local style, which is here made in the grape variety Neuburger. I think that the region Leithaberg will be very famous in the next years and centuries, not even from us, from the idea of making together a group of DSE, but even from the style of the wine, because the style of the wine is very special in the international restaurants to find the identity of the wine together with food first, and even the character of the wine you can even find again if you taste the wine all over the world. In this way, thank you for Georg Schweitzer to explain a little bit before, and thank you for all of you staying in Poland now, tasting the wines together with us here in Austria. And I will send you the best wishes here from my winery, and I hope all of us will come once again in this wonderful region in Leithaberg, which is not so far away from Poland. If you have questions, please tell us, tell Piotr or me if it's necessary for you to get more information about this wine. Thanks for your audience, and thank you for the time to spending together with Leithaberg.
Thank you very much, Erwin. I would have one question for you still on this flight. I think you really named it perfectly about the acidity structure, which is typically for the Leithaberg region. And you know, we have a couple of terms for acidity, like racy or whatever it might be, vivid acidity. But all of the wines have got, I always say, a refreshing, lively acidity, yeah, which is really nice, balanced and integrated into these wines. And even in the vintage 2018, and maybe you can just explain a little bit about 2018 and the Leithaberg acidity structure comparable, because 18 was quite hot in Austria, and a lot of wines, how to say, had a little bit of challenge, yeah, in other regions with the acidity structure.
Thanks for the question. I will tell you that 2018 was for me and for a lot of our colleagues at the Leithaberg a wonderful year to get impression if you are a good wine producer or not, or wine grower or not, because you had to be very carefully by picking the grapes at the right time in their healthy situation and vinify as the year was, as the vintage was. I think 2018 was in a way very difficult because a lot of the producers had the problems with too high ripeness and very less or no elegance in the wines. Mm-hmm. You will never find this style of the wines in the Leithaberg, because the minerality and the acidity coming from limestone, Leiterkalk, or from schist gives the wine the freshness and the elegancy. And we are picked very carefully, all of us by hand. In this way, we picked in the right time of healthy grapes, of never overripe or full ripe grapes, maybe ripe grapes, and never together with botrytis. In this way, we have the idea to take only healthy grapes, the best grapes from the best crus, or totally from the village, to make a Leithaberg, which gives the identity also from the character of the vintage. That's right. But when you taste between the 18 and the 19, only on this slide, you will see that 19 will never be more fresh as the 18, and the 18 will never be so opulent as you may have tasted it from other areas in the world, I will say, because we take care about a lot of the solidity of the grapes, of the working in the vineyards, and the right time and the date of the picking of the grapes. I think that's the result of the 18s we have tasted now in this flight, that the idea to making wine is not making not even a technical wine, it's only a living wine. And living wine is coming from the grapes picked on the right time, from the right grapes, and vinify very natural, maybe organic, but vinifying as it was in this year possible, and never overripe and never overloaded. And it's necessary to have acidity which balance the situation of the alcohol, but also managing very carefully the style of the wine. And all the producers are making it in a very proper and serious way here in the Leithaberg.
Yeah, thanks a lot for this answer. I think this exactly explains how the Leithaberg region is working. So you are not picking because of certain technical facts, yeah, like pH or whatever. You're picking of tasting, so getting the impression of phenolic and physiological ripeness at the correct level, and then you start picking, and then you make the wine, and this is the result which we get always in a balanced way, even in challenging vintages. And I think this is one of the main features of the Leithaberg region, which you can see in all the wines we have been presenting so far, and we're going to present and the wines to come, because we will have a vintage 2015 as well, sometimes in the flight, which was quite dominant from the, let's say, heat point of view. And you will see there's still a liveliness in these wines, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, good. Then thanks a lot, Erwin, for your time and for explaining us this really nice Neuburger and Chardonnay flights. I would suggest let's switch to the next flights. I hope that everybody has poured the wine. Thank you very much, Erwin. I hope everybody has poured the wines for the flight number 2, which we call Weissburgunder, along the Leithaberg region. And so guess now four Weissburgunder are coming, yeah, but they will show you that Weissburgunder is a variety which can really have a wide spectrum in terms of aroma profiles, in terms of wine styles, but there again is the common feature of Leithaberg inside. And very much welcome, Mr. Georg Prieler. Maybe somebody know him as Mr. Pinot Blanc. I don't know, but he has and his family and his father has a lot of experience with Pinot Blanc, even back to the 70s, 60s, even before that. So Georg, please give us a run through these 4 nice Weissburgunder wines in front of us.
Thank you very much and welcome everybody. I'm more than happy to present one of my favorite varieties, Pinot Blanc, which we also call Weissburgunder. First of all, and it's quite nice to know that actually this variety, of course, exists not only in Austria, but it exists around the north side of the Alps, which makes it very interesting. That means for me personally, it starts from Burgundy, Champagne, through Alsace, through Germany, then Switzerland, of course, North Italy, Adige, and then to Austria, and then more eastern part. So around the north side and all is a variety that belongs to all our heritage for a very long time. Weissburgunder is the variety which combines freshness with minerality very good, that I appreciate. And I would love to start with the first wine of a great winery from our region, the Weingut Heinrich. It's Heike and Gernot Heinrich. They are producing biodynamic wines since long time, and a very, oh, I'm sorry, the first wine is our wines. The first wine is from the winery Prieler.
Yeah, I was just wondering when you mentioned that one of the best wineries here, and then it was your own wine. So, but then I recognized, okay. So let's start with your winery.
It's one of the small unknown wineries, Prieler.
Maybe you have more insight, so please continue.
From Austria. So I sent it today, the Weissburgunder Leithaberg DAC 2017. What in general, what all 4 wines have together, which I had a look at, are all skim maturated. That means that normally the winemakers in our region, it's a tradition to keep the Pinot Blanc on the skins. It depends on the winery. For our winery, it's about 2 days on the skins, then it's pressed gently, it's settled down overnight, and then it's just fermented in a big wooden cask. That's it. The most impact that we do from the winery side is time. That means for the vintage 2017 was for a bit more than 11 months on the hard lease before we just simply bottled it. The wines come from chalky limestone, which on the top of the vineyard is a little bit of schist that you can find. And if you taste the wines, you will feel immediately the slightly walnut character, which is very typical for Pinot Blanc in our region. Pinot Blanc goes from the character of the nuttiness, which is typical for the variety itself, from hazelnut to walnut. In our case, for our region, for the Leithaberg region, I always had the feeling of an walnut character. When you taste the wines, you will feel slightly tannic. Tannic, like you have tannins from green tea. That's always something that keeps fresh. So even the hottest vintage, it's not a problem at all for us, because I wouldn't say that we provide you with a huge amount of acidity. We provide you with a harmony balance of tannin and citric acidity. That's something that we get easily if there is Pinot Blanc planted on limestone. The little impact of schist brings this sexy fruity character that schist always makes wines. It makes very charming, open-minded, and very in balance. What I love with this vintage 2017 has, beside this freshness and crispiness, it also has a little bit of creaminess on the palate, actually. This creamy character before there comes the citric acidity. In the point of acidity, it was quite funny. I was listening to Erwin and Georg before, and at the point of acidity, I'm very often asked in which way it goes for us. And in my opinion, in my personal opinion, in the world of the acidity for white wines, I always have the main feeling that there are two lines. There's one go in the apple way of acidity, which makes it quite crispy, quite fresh. The acidity you feel very often in the middle of the palate. This is very often if the climate is a bit cooler and it's a different soils. In our region, I always have a very citric feeling that you also feel in the world of wine in some Chenin Blancs, for example, from Loire, or Chablis, for example, this citric, salty character. And especially in our region, you also feel this little bit of saltiness, supported, in my opinion, by the limestone, with this little bit of lake influence. And you also have the citric acidity. I think that's, for me personally, the main part. The second wine that you have, now I come to the wine that I actually was talking first. The second winery is the winery Heinrich. It's one of the very, very famous winery in our region, which works, as said before, biodynamic. By the way, we work just simply organic in that case. He provided us with a weissburgunder from the vintage 2015. And for everybody who knows the winery Heinrich from the last 5 to 10 years, we know that they like to work a little bit more reductive. This wine was also skim maturated for 24 hours, so a bit shorter than ours, but it's also a little bit earlier harvested, I suppose, to keep the freshness. Aging was just simply big wooden cask in 500-liter barrels and bottled after 2 years. So this wine got a little bit more time. When you smell inside, when you just freshly get it into your glass, you will immediately have this Flintstone reductive character that you know also from very good Burgundy wines. And on the palate, you will have this typical Leithaberg structure with this long bow of acidity that gives you a power at the end. 15 as well as 17 tend to be more a warmer and drier vintage than cool and wet in general, just to have an idea about the vintages. So I would say in Burgenland 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, inclusive 20 was tend to be warmer and drier than cooler and wet. So you feel that also in this very hot vintage like 2015, he was able to keep with the work in his vineyard, with the reductiveness, very good, this fresh character. He likes his wines more individual, and that's something good because it shows that we are not in a corset. It's just the same idea that we follow, that everything that changes the character of the region is not allowed, but everything that impacts in the good way is always allowed in our region, in the way of stylistic. So it's 2 Leithaberg wines for Heinrich. He harvested from 2 villages, from schist and limestone. I think if I taste the wine, in my personal opinion, it's more limestone character on the structure. You have a little bit of this schist flintstone character in the nose. It's really a wine that needs just time in your glass. So for everybody like me, who always has 4 glasses in front of him, it's always the perfect way because you can leave it a while in the glass and then later on come back to the tasting and you will feel how immediately it changed. The wine number 3, if I'm not wrong this time, is from the winery Zehetbauer. It's a single vineyard. So now we start on the single vineyard. You have to note that the Leithaberg wine, which you would say it's a region wine, we work from the point of the idea of the quality like a village in that case. So more like a complexity already in the region wine. For the Zehetbauer, it's a single vineyard. It's Rietsatz. It's a limestone vineyard site on the beginning of the hill of our village, which has also a good amount of clay on it, which brings a good water regulation. It makes it a bit more attractive. He likes to use it shorter in the barrels. He did also skin maturation for 24 hours, but likes it shorter in the barrels to keep the freshness and the fruit. And maybe if you see it, I have like Georg and Leo, a little map on the backside to have an idea actually what we're talking about. So in general, you will see about Austria. You know it anyway. We have talked about very eastern part, close to lake, Pannonian influence. And so we tasted the first wine that was from our winery was here in this part. So as you see, it's closer to lake. You have to know that this part is a little bit more hilly and is closer to lake. That means it gives a little bit more warmer impact in September during harvest time. That means in the end of the ripeness, Pinot Blanc does here also very good because the end of the ripeness, the grapes has to be in a perfect condition between sweetness and fruitness, physiological ripeness and sugar degradation. And therefore, we use mostly, for example, in our village, the Pinot Blanc from Leithaberg wine up to a single vineyard. The wine from Heinrich we had is a little bit more up there. So you see as well close on to the lake, but more up. So it's a more windy situation over there. So now we are tasting the wines from here, where it's always a mixture of schist and limestone. So if we talk about in our village, it's about limestone or schist, that means that it's not 110% of limestone. That means that the most character of the vineyard is the limestone character. That's the most important thing. That's why you also feel in that Zehetbauer. It comes back again to the nuttiness. But also you have on the palate the tannin texture that has some skin maturation a little bit more on the backwards, which makes it for me like a prima ballerina character of a single vineyard. The Rietsatz has less lake influence. It has more cool winds, so you keep the cool grapes and you have the cool soil. So it's especially in 2018, it's a huge advantage of this vineyard site. He did, in my opinion, a great job with this wine. And for the fourth wine, we have from a good friend of ours from the winery Wagentristl. It's Rudi Wagentristl. He has this fabulous single vineyard, Kreidestein. So now, just to have an idea, we was here, and now we move up much more far away from the lake and higher up. I suppose it must be around 150 meters higher than the vineyard that we had before, and in point of vineyards, that's huge. So very less impact of the lake. It's amazing limestone over there, so it's very hard to work. It's the Müllendorfer Kreidestein. Yeah, Rudi did skin maturation for 1 day, like most of our winemakers. The minimum of the winemakers for Pinot Blanc do 1 day, some do 3 days, but honestly, it always depends when you want, when it starts to ferment also. So when you have to press it. And he did age it in 500-liter barrels in that case to get a little bit more of air to the wines. It's the Mühldorfer Kreidestein has always, I tasted it one time from Rudi when he was young in barrel. And I remember that it always quite reductive and tight, and it wins by time. So you're tasting now Pinot Blancs up to 2015 back, and as you feel in the wines, it's just the beginning, it's not the end. And that's something that I really appreciate on Pinot Blanc. For me personally, one of the favorite sentences about this variety that David Kirchknopf said so nicely, it's the Riesling under the Burgundy varieties, because it has the freshness, but also has the same minerality. There are 4 different wines of Leithaberg. So with the Kreidestein, you had the last single vineyard, where you have a little bit more textured and structured and a bit more acidic. But as you feel, I think for me personally, Leithaberg provides you always with the most charming side of minerality that you can get. So wines which are very food friendly, but also on the other side, enough character to just stay beside. That's a huge advantage that Leithaberg wines had, and that we Leithaberg winemakers or farmers try to make use of it. So we work very backwards, very respectful to the vineyards, keep the vitality in the vineyards. That means if there's a tree in the vineyard, we don't kick it out, we actually support it, because we want to keep the vitality. And also a respectful work in the cellar, so to not overfloating is, and better is to touch it to less than too much. But what you need is as always time. That means that we as a winemaker, there's the Leithaberg wines a minimum of 1 year that they are bottled. For me personally, it's 1.5 years for my Leithaberg DSC simple. For some winemakers, it's 2, and some bottle it after 3. So it's not a matter of being the first on the market. It's one of the being the last of the market, to really have the open-minded character of our region to the class. I wish you a great tasting. Enjoy the wines, and please come back to the wines from the beginning after the tasting to have a look how they developed. Cheers.
Thanks a lot, Georg, for this interesting discussion. I would like to take one question in here about the Pinot Blanc, and I always, you know me, so I always say maybe it's the hidden secret in Burgundy why it tastes that well. So officially it's all Chardonnay, but as we know, there might be some Pinot Blanc there as well. But you were talking about the skin contact in those wines, and I think it's obvious in all 4 of those wines that there's skin contact. But what does it mean when you really trust on the skin contact in terms of healthiness of the grapes you're harvesting?
I mean, of all 4 wineries, it's absolutely sure that they are handpicked. It's something, a logical consequence when you do skin maturation. There's no other way to do it. That means of healthiness, that it's perfectly selected. The lucky thing is, I mean, there's an advantage also on global warming. Honestly, if it's warm and dry, you have less danger of botrytis and any different sickness. So it's able to do during hand harvest to select it. Some select also the berries. In the cellar, like me personally, I select the golden skinned colored berries, the middle-sized berries out for that. If I understood it right, all winemakers stem it. That means we put it away from the stems. Reason for that is that our wines are anyway positive dirty enough so that we don't need the stems to get it even more dirty. That means you have the spiciness, this white pepper notes in all the wines. And then skin maturation means just simply in a cold tank or something to chill it down for a minimum of 24 hours. I know we lose a little bit of acidity, but a good friend and colleague of mine from Germany always said that bit of acidity that you lose, you anyway win it with tannin texture. So it's not a matter of huge amount of acidity. That the little bit that we lose doesn't matter, because you win the structureness. And I think it's also a part in the heart of our region and Pinot Blanc to do the skin maturation. because Pinot Blanc is a natural variety. For example, if you plant Pinot Blanc and, I don't know, Sauvignon Blanc in the flat area, you get where you make easy drinking wines. You get from the Sauvignon Blanc a very easy, good drinking Sauvignon Blanc, which nothing to say against. If you plant Pinot Blanc in the flat area, you just get a shitty wine. That's a huge difference because Pinot Blanc has very less own taste. But the good thing is in our region that the old farmers were quite smart and planted Pinot Blanc on the great vineyard sites. That means less impact of the own variety, but huge impact about where it's growing. And this is a huge advantage that Pinot Blanc brings with it. And also the Pinot Blanc has in the autumn, when we have warmer weather, it's not a problem of sugar degradation. Pinot Blanc keeps it quite nicely, the sugar degradation. So it's not rising that fast and gives a chance for the physiological ripeness to get further and further. I think there's also a secret that Pinot Blanc has the last year. Why it does age so well? Honestly, I have no idea. I have Pinot Blanc back in our cellar since plenty of decades. And I was always wondering because, for example, my grandfather made Pinot Blanc totally different than us we do nowadays, of course. I mean, he was one head smaller than me and had 100 kilograms. So he was a strong guy. His wines was not easy drinking. There was amazing, huge wines. Like I would say in the old way of Elsa style, where you had a little bit botrytis, but when you taste the wines and you take, of course, a good vintage in that decade, it was still fresh and it was still alive, and that was so fascinating for me. But Pinot Blanc is the good thing is it's getting never overripe or underripe. It's get over in a good ripe condition. It has acidity. It has a certain amount of alcohol. It has freshness. So there's nothing to say why it should not age very well.
Yeah.
And Pinot Blanc keeps, luckily, a nice freshness. But I also have to say that in the world of Pinot Blanc, we have different selections here in our region and in Austria. So, for example, if I think about Pinot Blanc in Alsace, for example, they have the Gross Pinot Blanc from Paul Chiffret. That means the idea behind Alsace Pinot Blanc was to blend it with Auxerrois and to get a very good, easy drinking table wine for every day. Nothing to say against. So the Gross Pinot Blanc from Paul Chiffret is like, I can just, let me say like this bottle.
Yeah.
For example, maybe I'll tie it a little bit longer. And when you take Pinot Blanc from our region, it's like that, half a bottle. So it's a totally different selection. Our Pinot Blancs very often get golden skin colored, while a different Pinot Blancs get quite greenish. You can see that also quite nicely in Germany. For example, the north side of Germany, from the Nahe Rheingau, this part around up to Pfalz, has a different Pinot Blanc selection than in Baden. Baden has a mixture between these two. So it depends if you had the tradition to do Pinot Blanc as everyday wine or you do Pinot Blanc as high-class wine. Yeah. And from that on, high-class wine, you have it in great single vineyard. So it's not about the variety. It's just about which impact this variety comes through that soil, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I think the hidden secret on the Pinot Blanc is that phenolics could be something good for white wine as well. Yeah, so I think this is the key fact behind the whole thing here, and therefore the skin contact, especially with this variety, is a good thing in supporting the texture, supporting the structure, and for sure the longevity of the wines. So thanks a lot, Georg, for the very nice presentation of the Weissburgunder Pinot Blancs. Let me switch to the next slide. We are going to Gruner Veltliner, that major variety all over Austria, the third ranked variety in Burgenland in terms of surface planted. So we talk about roughly 1,800 hectares of Gruner Veltliner. By the way, closely followed by Welschriesling, 1,750 hectares, so it's almost the same. And we will get the Gruner Veltliner from the Leithaberg region, which is, I think, a special Gruner Veltliner all over Burgenland, because a lot of people, when they think about Gruner Veltliner, they think about Wachau, Kremstal, Kamstal, and things like this. And they don't know that well Gruner Veltliner from Burgenland, and maybe they have in their understanding Gruner Veltliner from different regions, but with the Leithaberg region, you might find some similarities to this before mentioned Lower Austria regions, but of course with a difference. And Leo Sommer, just beside me, is going to walk you through this flight of Gruner Veltliner, and will explain you the differences, and especially the winery Sommer, where he's coming from, is one of the Gruner Veltliner wineries, like the Pinot Blanc before from Georg Prieler. So he's the specialist on this variety. Leo, please, floor is yours.
Thank you, Georg. Hello, guys. A lot of you saw me sitting next to Georg, but I'm not only sitting next to Georg here. I'm also sitting in my home village in Donnerskirchen, in the heart of the Leithaberg region, what Georg already explained. And I'm really pleased to tell you a bit more about our Gruner Veltliner here in Burgenland. As you probably all know, Gruner Veltliner has a long-standing tradition in Austria, but not only in Austria, also in Burgenland. Georg already introduced the very important variety, and I can tell you about our winery that my grandfather and great-grandfather and great-great-grandfather grew Gruner Veltliner in the past, and it was always the most important variety in our winery. But a lot of you guys probably didn't ever try a Gruner Veltliner from Burgenland or the Leithaberg region. I don't know, but I guess. And if you are around the world and you talk about Austria and Gruner Veltliner, then most times you talk about Lower Austria Gruner Veltliner from different wine styles. So Gruner Veltliner can literally do everything from entry-level, crisp, easy drinking, a light wine style, up to full-bodied structured wine, and even very spicy and minerality-driven wines. And that is where I want to start. We had the different factors around the Leithaberg region, with the forest on the top of the Leithaberg hill, with the distance to the lake, and Georg and Erwin explained the factors in the growing conditions very well. But I have always to mention it again, because Gruner Veltliner can yield a lot. So you find a lot of easy drinking Gruner Veltliner from vineyards with high yields, and the wines usually don't have deeper layers. But as always, when it comes to quality, there are some crucial factors, and I think in the region we have the two soils where Gruner Veltliner can really stand out. So we have the primary rock from the Leithaberg mountain on the top with the limestone, or on the surface with the schist soil. And on both soils, Gruner Veltliner can be a very extraordinary example of a minerality-driven wine. But most wines will grow in the Leithaberg region on schist soil, most Gruner Veltliner wines. So the examples here, the four wines, I hope you poured it already, can really excel and can tell you what Gruner Veltliner on schist can perform. And the title with Secret Home Place Leithaberg tells a lot. Georg didn't tell me about the title, but I'm really happy to see it, because yeah, it is a very important variety. But outside of Austria, probably not a lot of people think about Gruner Veltliner and Leithaberg. And I want to show you with the four examples that Gruner Veltliner can be more than fruit forward and more than full pod. It can be very precise, it can be very focused, and it can lead to wines with a lot of minerality. And we did a lot of blind tastings in the past and experienced that Gruner Veltliner in a row with Weissburgunder, Neuburger, and Chardonnay can perform on the same level. And why is that? Because all of these grape varieties we have in the Leithaberg region in our growing restrictions can transport the minerality very well. And this is the main point why we decided to go with Gruner Veltliner, with Neuburger, with Chardonnay, and with Weissburgunder. All of these four wines can tell you about the origin. The wines can tell you about the soil, and even a little bit, of course, of the winemaker and the vintner in the background. Otherwise, yeah, we wouldn't be necessary. So I hope you can also find some signature of the winery in the wines, and that leads me already to the very first wine in the flight. And the very first wine comes from Oko, which is quite close to the lake if we think about the geographical factor again. And it is the youngest wine in our flight. So we start with the youngest, vintage 2019, and we already had the topic that Leithaberg generally gets some time to mature in the barrel, in the tank, and in the bottle. So 2019 is quite young at the moment, but already shows very well where it will go. It is from Weingut Winery Mad in Oko. A very well-known winery for precise wines, for exact fruit, for very well balanced wines. And I think the first one is a great example. If we talk about very well balanced wines, you can find the fruitiness of Grüne Veltliner, but not the primary fruit. I think you have the intensity. But you can see a bit more of deeper layers as well. So some floral components in the nose, apple, pear, and a hint of spiciness. And Grüne Veltliner, when it gets ripe, can also send you some aromas of exotic flavors. Not like Sauvignon Blanc, but you can find it in the background, supporting the spiciness. And on the palate, as I mentioned, very well balanced. A lot of spiciness, a little bit of the yeasty aroma and the yeasty touch. This leads me to a wine which shows that this is the start of Leithaberg with fruitiness, with deeper layers, and some maturation potential. And as you can see, there is no single vineyard stated on the label, and we compare in our flight now two wines, two Grüne Veltliner wines, Leithaberg DAC without any single vineyard mentioning on the label, and two from special single vineyard. But the special comparison in this flight is that we show you a wine with more fruit forward aromas in the nose and on the palate, and one structured, and with the single vineyard the same. So you will see a single vineyard wine with more structure, with deeper layers, and one single vineyard wine focusing more on fruit. So again, I'm not talking about primary fruit, but we all know that ripe grape material, Georg mentioned it before, the yellow skin, the berry skin leads us to a very intense aroma. And depending on the winery and the winemaker, it can be more in the foreground or more in the background. And I think the first Winery Mad is a very good example of putting ripe fruit in the foreground, but with the deeper layers on the palate, with the spiciness and the very well balanced palate. Yeah. So we move on to the second wine, and please keep your first wine in your glass. I hope you have more glasses, because the direct comparison between the first and the second wine is very nice, because both wines have no single vineyard name on the label. So both wines are by the label in the same quality category, but you will see and experience a huge difference. So the second wine is Winery Leo Hillinger, a very well-known winery, also internationally very well-known, with Grüne Veltliner Leithaberg 2017, so 2 years riper than the first example. And we are almost on the opposite side of the Leithaberg growing region in Joyce, where you can find both soils, schist and limestone. So there are great examples in both great wines from both soil varieties we have in the region. And the wine in the direct comparison shows a totally different development. So we have a barrel maturation in the 3,000 liter barrel, so large oak barrel from Austrian oak Stockinger, when I got it right, with longer mesh standing time, and then a very long development on the lees. And this is a very, very important part. We already talked about it a little bit, but the maturation time on the lees, on the total lees, so the yeast after the fermentation, or the fine lees is for us in the Leithaberg region a very important part, because we have the time and we give the time to the wine to develop in the barrel, and with all the reduction power of the yeast, we can give the wine more structure and help the wine to preserve the aroma and develop a little bit slower, so we can bring the wines 1, 2, or 3 years after the harvest and the vintage on the market. And this leads us to very, very structured and long-living wines. So Leo Hillinger Leithaberg DC 2017 combines for me a very special approach in a kind of hint of a citrus fruit. So you can experience the very intense citric fruit overlaid by spiciness, reductive spiciness, yeasty aromas. So I think it's a combination of the spiciness from gruner veltliner, ripe gruner veltliner, and the spiciness of the yeast maturation time. So if you keep the wine long on the yeast, we had it in the weissburgunder from the last flight, from winery Heinrich, that it keeps the wine very tight and close, and gives also a very certain aroma to the wine that supports the structure and also the phenolic content on the palate. So if we talk about phenolic content, and Georg really mentioned it before, that it's very important to have the right phenolic content in the wine. Then we have also to talk about the lees contact, because there is also a lot of phenolic content in the lees, and if we stir it up or we keep it on the total lees, there is an extraction happening, and that gives additional structure to the wine and makes it very tight and precise on the palate. The winery works organically. The wine is spontaneously fermented. I got the fact sheet there, and they kept it 4 months on the total lees, what we talked about, and another 12 months on the fine lees. So you see a very long maturation time on the lees. And this is, I think, the reason why 2017 is still so fresh, and has, I guess, another 3 to 5 years to develop even further in terms of aromas, and even a longer potential for maturation in your cellar. So a very great example for me. And if you think back to the very first wine we had, it shows the versatility of gruner veltliner within the region. It reflects very well the different soils, and it shows you very well what the winemakers can do to help, to support, and to develop the wines in a very certain way. More on the fruity side, more on the structure side, but both very authentic and done with indigenous grape varieties of Austria. I would love to move to the third wine, and of course I can tell you the most about the third wine because it's from our winery. So I'm sitting in Donauskirchen. Our winery is located in Donauskirchen, and the single vineyard Himmelreich is located just, let's say, 500 meters from here, so quite close to the place where we are actually sitting. And it is a very special single vineyard. Himmelreich means, translated, kingdom of heaven. It's a name that dates back into the 19th century, and it means that is a very special vineyard site surrounded by forest, on the southeast slopes of the Leitha mountain, in the heart of the Leithaberg DAC region, and grown on a very special schist soil. So it is quite steep, even for Austrian comparisons. So most people think about the flat Burgenland, but if you have to walk up the vineyard or the Leithaberg, then you probably regret that you told everybody Burgenland is flat. So it is quite steep, and we do a lot of handwork there because of the steepness. And it was a vineyard that is dating back quite a long time ago, but it fell into oblivion into the 50s. And why? Because our wine growers in the region started to transform or to work with tractors, and the vineyard was simply too steep for tractors. It had quite low yields, so they forgot about to work with the vineyard and did the easier work into the flatter on the foothills of the Leithaberg region. In 2007 to 2009, we started together with two wineries in Donnerskirchen to recultivate the vineyard site, and it is now planted with gruner veltliner, a very, very small spot, only about 2 hectares big, as I mentioned, surrounded by forest, and it gives us the cool air flowing down through the rows. And during daytime, it is quite hot. You can imagine southeast in the summertime on the schist soil heats up very well, and the heat is giving back to the vineyard side during night. And on the opposite side, we have the cold winds keeping us the acidity in the wines. So this is very important for us, and this is the main story about the Himmelreich vineyard. If you try the wine, it is vintage 2018, single vineyard Himmelreich. I also love to work a lot with skin contact, because gruner veltliner tends to lose a lot of acidity during ripening. So in warmer years, and Georg already mentioned it, 2018 was a challenge for a lot of us to keep the freshness, to keep the tension on the palate. So I tried to keep the wine performing on a very high level in terms of tension. So we did a lot of mash standing time, about 48 hours in the press, pressed it, and without any sedimentation, we went into the barrel for the spontaneous fermentation. That led to a very reductive sense in the first moment after the fermentation, but with the micro-oxygenation in the barrel. So you have the reductive side of the yeast on the one hand side, and the oxidation through the barrel on the other hand side, and that led us to a very well balanced wine, where you can find, I think, a lot of aromas of typical gruner veltliner when you think about spiciness and ripe yellow fruit. So I will even go for a ripe pear there. And if you swallow the wine, you can really feel a lot of tension. And this is what I'm talking about. This is what Leithaberg is really about. You can find a lot of phenolic content, which is very well integrated, very well balanced, and the saltiness, minerality is always a question. What do you see in minerality? How would you how is your interpretation of minerality? But if you swallow the wine and you have this tight saltiness on your palate, I would say this is what we are looking for, and this is what gruner veltliner on schist soil can do, and leads to a very tight aftertaste, where you won't find a lot of aromas besides. But this is a puristic approach that we love to work with, and that shows that gruner veltliner can perform in terms of terroir-driven wines on the same level as chardonnay, weissburgunder, and neuburger before. And this is the reason why we just developed the wine into that region, into that direction. And that leads me to the fourth wine in the flight. So again, we have a gruner veltliner, Leithaberg DAC, and again we have the single vineyard on the label, which is called Ried Backhobel. We are now in Joyce on the northern side. When you look back on the map, quite close to the lake. in the winery Rudolf Kiss. And we also have a bit riper example, so vintage 2017. And the comparison with Himmelreich is now very nice again, because personally, I see Himmelreich on the structured side and Ried Barkobel more on the fruit forward side, but it shows how well fruit forward Gruner Veltliner can develop when it's a ripe grape material. So in the nose again, you find a hint of exotic touch, supported by peppery spiciness in the background. I won't say mango, but it is almost in that kind of way. But on the palate again, very tight. You have the yeasty aroma, and when we talked already about a little bit about Chenin Blanc, if you think about Chenin, you can find some similar aromas on the palate here, which tightens up quite well, gives a string and crisp acidity. But if you look at the data, I don't know if you have the data sheet, but we have an acidity of 4.5. So it's really, really low acidity. And I mentioned it before, Gruner Veltliner tends to go down in acidity when we have ripe grape material. But the really important thing is that you keep the tension on the palate, and you can do it either with the yeast contact, with the skin contact, or with a mixture of both. And the soil supports you, giving the liveliness, and the cool air also supports you to keep the freshness in the wines. So you probably won't feel it, but it is only matured in stainless steel. So I would even believe it if you tell me that it is matured in barrel, because you find a nice structure, you find a very well balanced oxidation reduction process, and that supports superb the fruit. And again, if you think back to the wine before, to Himmelreich, you can feel some similarities in structure, but Himmelreich is more on the reductive, on the deeper layer side, and here we have the fruit forward, intense ripe fruit, but intense nose of Gruner Veltliner. And all of this is Leithaberg, so it's quite versatile, but it shows that you can go into deeper structure and perform on a very high quality level. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hope you feel it and you can see it, and you saw a new impression, or you experienced a new impression on Gruner Veltliner. You can just tell us in the comments what your favorite Gruner Veltliner is, and I hope we'll find soon some Gruner Veltliner from Leithaberg in your personal favorite round of Gruner Veltliner wines from Austria. And I'm happy to answer your questions, or Georg, probably you want to.
Yes, I do have.
I see.
I do have one question, because you've been talking about lees contact in almost all of the wines, so across lees, fine lees, whatsoever. But when you work with lees contact, I think, and we talk about spontaneous fermentation, I think the lees, or the yeast coming from the vineyard, has to be really, really of good quality level. So what are you doing in the vineyards to really support the quality of the lees and the yeast that you work with later on?
Mm-hmm. Well, this is a very difficult question. So in general, in Leithaberg DC, we support spontaneous fermentation, because otherwise you have a lot of influence from the aromatic yeast, and that could overlay or put in another layer over the origin of the wine. So it is important to work with spontaneous fermentation with the natural yeast from the vineyard side. How do we support it? We recommend to all of our wineries to work sustainably certified, or sustainably in their own idea in the vineyard, or organically. So we have quite a high percentage of the wineries working organically and sustainable. That helps us to some nice comments. That helps us to provide the to provide a healthy yeast that leads in the fermentation process to a result that we can work further on in the maturation process. So this is a very important part. We don't work against nature, we work with the nature, and every winemaker is aware, and most of our wineries are smaller scale wineries. So the people presenting the wine to you is probably the winemaker doing the work in the cellar and doing the work outside in the vineyard. So this is a very close connection, what we can provide to our customers. So we can work on very, very small parts in the winery to get even better every single year. And of course, we're doing in the Leithaberg DAC region blind tastings to exchange the experience in every single vineyard. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that what we can, if you want to summarize it, we could even say you can feel the soul of the wine grower in every glass of Leithaberg DAC you taste.
I hope so. I hope so. You do. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is really good. Thanks a lot, Leo, for doing this presentation for the Gruner Veltliner. Yeah. Finally, Burgenland without red wine does not exist, of course. So the last slide we are presenting is based on blaufraenkisch. Blaufraenkisch, red finesse and excellence from the Leithaberg. Just a couple of words about blaufraenkisch. Blaufraenkisch is a quite old variety here in Burgenland area. It's dated back to 1750, so in the mid of the 18th century. The name comes from the color and from the high quality. So Fränkisch was named, all the varieties having a high quality potential have been named Fränkisch in former times. Charlemagne the Great did define this one. And there's a lot of blaufraenkisch planted in the former monarchy side. So most of the plantings are in Hungary right now. There it's called Tech-Frankosch, but it's called as well Lemberger in Germany, or Limburger in Italy, or Frankowska Modra in Slovakia and in Czech Republic. So you can find it everywhere. And blaufraenkisch, there was a nice saying from Chances Robinson on blaufraenkisch, that blaufraenkisch is the highest potential grape variety from the Austrian reds in terms of ageability, in terms of structure, in terms of texture. And we talked about a lot of texture in the white wines already, and you will see we will talk about texture as well here on the blaufraenkisch. It has got acidity, it has got tannins, it has got quite tight tension on the palate. And with this slide, we want to show you what blaufraenkisch can do on the Leithaberg area. And Johannes, I see you on the screen already. Very, very nice, very warm welcome to you from the winery Nera, coming in Eisenstadt in St. Georgen. And he will lead you through this blaufraenkisch flight. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope everyone can hear me. Yeah, I think blaufraenkisch is a very wide variety. It goes from or it has a lot of different styles, and I'm very happy to drive you through the styles of Leithaberg DAC blaufraenkisch. I think it's very difficult to put the whole Leithaberg package into 4 wines, but I think we made a very, very nice, we chose very nice wines to get a good overview. So maybe I will start with blaufraenkisch. I think Georg already told a lot about blaufraenkisch, but what for me is the most interesting thing about blaufraenkisch is that blaufraenkisch is good on more or less every soil. So you have on one side a very heavy limestone. It gets very elegant, very mineral. It has a good acidity. On the other side, you have slate or mixed schist, and it's maybe more the full-bodied type of wine. A very let's say very good wine taster from Austria recently said it's like in this package of a little bit of Syrah, a little bit of Pinot Noir, a little bit of Cabernet, and maybe a little bit of Barbera, and somewhere in between you can find blaufraenkisch, which makes it very, very interesting. It's also a very old variety, which for me is very significant to be a good variety, because we had a lot of changes in temperature. We had different hillsides, different areas it is planted on, and it still remains. So we have it for 300, 400 years in this area. And it's still one of the most important variety. I think it is the most important red variety at the Leithaberg. So yeah, maybe what is also important for blaufraenkisch, we just talked about the white wines, which are maybe on the higher hillsides, like the Leithaberg hillsides are between 150 and 300 meters, I think. And yeah, you will look for blaufraenkisch in the middle hillsides, like about 200 to 220 meters or below, because Leithaberg is blaufraenkisch is a very late variety, and it needs the warmer temperatures and maybe the not too cool winds to get very ripe, to get its full texture and the whole structure it is known for. And we will find all these parts in the wines we will taste right now. So yeah, mixed schist and limestone, or slate and limestone, are the soil we are growing on. And I will start with the first wine, which is red finesse and excellence from Leithaberg. I think that's a perfect description. Blaufraenkisch Leithaberg DAC 2018, Weingut Bayer. Weingut Bayer is located in Donauskirchen. We already heard a little bit of Donauskirchen, Leo Sommer and Georg are sitting in Donauskirchen, and Donauskirchen is actually a little bit more known for excellent white wines, but they also have delicate red wines, as you can see in the first wine. Donauskirchen is in the middle of Leithaberg, so not too far in the south, not too far in the north. And it has, besides the Himmelreich, a little bit more shallow hillsides. So they can get very warm. They can profit of the Lake Neusiedlersee, which is very close nearby. For that, this blaufraenkisch gets a very warm, very ripe nose, especially, of course, because of the vintage 2018. 2018 was very warm, but still all the blaufraenkisch have a good acidity and a very good structure, very good texture, and these wines, show what's possible at the Leithaberg with the variety blaufraenkisch. I will also take a sip. You can see Weingut Bayer in this style is looking for a little bit more fruit, but still you can taste the structure, the complexity of the slate, of the mixed schist, with a little bit of limestone, and it's a perfect example for the you can say the village kind of Leithaberg DAC blaufraenkisch. We will go ahead to the next one. The next one is from Weingut Lichtenberger Gonzales. Lichtenberger Gonzales is a very young winery located in Breitenbrunn, which is a little bit more in the north. Breitenbrunn is a very shallow area until it reaches the forests. Then it gets very steep, and the blaufraenkisch is also maybe in the middle of the hillsides. Lichtenberger Gonzales are two former cellar masters of very famous wineries, and they pair together and do produce awesome red and white wines. They are on the, let's say, a little bit more reductive side of winemaking at the Leithaberg DAC. This one is also, yeah, let's say, yeah, I think village kind of Leithaberg DAC fits the description very well. And it's 2017. So here we have a little bit more elegant vintage, but still has the typical flavors and the typical aromas of the Leithaberg DAC blaufraenkisch. In this case, we also have slate and limestone, a little bit more limestone. You can also feel it with the little higher acidity. It has a little more tense structure, but still very fruity and very yeah, impassioned blaufraenkisch. Yeah, I think you can also taste a little bit the Spanish fire of Adriana Gonzalez in this wine. Delicious. Yeah, let's get to the senior vineyard wines of blaufraenkisch. Blaufraenkisch is a variety where you can produce senior vineyard wines in a very, very good way, because it's very, yeah, very, how to say, unique on every area. It's like you have 3 senior vineyards more or less nearby. It's just a little bit higher, a little bit lower, a little different in the soil, and you get a completely different wine. Here we will have 2 senior vineyard wines, which are very interesting, because the one is on the northern side of the Lake Neusiedl, which is the warmer side of Leithaberg DAC, and also the little bit more shallow side. And the other one is from the southern middle, which is a little bit cooler, a little bit more far away from the lake. And we will start with blaufraenkisch Ried Altenberg Leithaberg DAC 2018 from the very famous Weingut Nittenhaus. Yeah, it's maybe one of the most iconic red wines we have in Austria. Ried Altenberg is right behind Joyce. We already heard about Joyce in the north of Leithaberg DAC. You can see it in the back of Leo. It's like a little bit above his head, and it's a very heavy limestone soil. Limestone brings a lot of acidity into the wine, brings a lot of structure, a lot of coolness into the wine, and it brings a very long livability. So you can taste these wines in about 20 years. They will still be alive. They will still be as fresh as, yeah, after the first years. So yeah, blaufraenkisch Altenberg. 2018. Also here you can see the refreshing structure of Leithaberg blaufraenkisch, even in very hot years. This vineyard, Altenberg, has grape vines with about 30 years old, and it's on altitudes on about 200 meters, not too steep. So yeah, it's ideal for making blaufraenkisch with a perfect view on the opposite side of the Lake Neusiedl. So it doesn't look at the lake. It's a little bit away of the lake, or on the other side of the lake. So you don't have these direct influences of the humidity of the lake. So you don't get any problems with late botrytis or something like that. And Weingut Nittenhaus is famous for its elegant ripeness, and you can feel it in this wine. Very, very good. So let's head towards the last wine. I hope I can describe this one the best way. This one is from our winery. It's called blaufraenkisch Leithaberg DAC Ried Feurer. Feurer is one of our senior vineyards that are in the middle layer of the Leithaberg hillside. The senior vineyard Prieler is more or less in the middle of the forest, so you have it in the front and in the back. So you get these cool winds during hot summer days. You have a very heavy limestone soil, so you can compare it very good to the senior vineyard Altenburger, but it's a little bit higher. You are in the altitude of about 230 meters, and it's much more a part of the Lake Neusiedl. So you have St. Georg. It's nearby Eisenstadt, and it's separated from the Lake Neusiedl by the Ruster Hügelland, where you can find, for example, the wineries of Georg Prieler or Zehetbauer. And due to that, our wines are always maybe a little bit more, in a cooler way. You can see it's 2017. It's a little bit riper than the Altenburg, but it still has this very elegant structure. And 2017 was a great year for blaufraenkisch, especially this vineyard. We had a great ripeness. We could leave it on the grape wines for a very long time, and developed a great structure, a great complexity. We ripe it in 500-liter barrels to keep the fruitiness and to keep the minerality. You can find here very good. I think this was a very complex, very nice overview of blaufraenkisch. If you have any questions left, I hope we could give you a good drive through to the Leithaberg. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Johannes. I've got a question for you as well. So, blaufraenkisch, a variety which is of course late harvested. So we talk about October timeframe roughly, normally in the years. But on the other side, with blaufraenkisch, we talk about ageability, we talk about maturation times. So what do you think on these wines? Because they easily, all of them, can go on for another 10, 15 years without any problem. What do you think where they are leading to in terms of aromas, in terms of structure? What is the capability or the potential of those wines in terms of aging in the next years?
Yeah, you described it very well. All of these wines have a very good aging potential. Normally, blaufraenkisch keeps a lot of fruitiness. So you open like a 2004 blaufraenkisch, and it still has this young and fruity, flavory nose, and also the palate is very, very straightforward. You don't lose any of the pressure it has right now, but it will still have it in about 15, 20 years. And that's what makes blaufraenkisch for me a very good aging wine. Despite there are some third aroma categories coming into the wine, so you always get a little bit of maybe leather or a little bit of smoke, which gives another complexity to the wine. So it will get better every year.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. It gets more and more complex, and I just can recommend to the guys there in Poland, if you're lucky and you will get, let's say, not Leithaberg, because Leithaberg is just existing since 2010 from the law, and then you have to add the vintages. But if you get a chance to taste, let's say 89, 92, 93, these are really, really great vintages. And as said, they are still fruity, and they develop these tertiary aromas, depending where it comes from undergrowth, maybe some mushrooms in there. But they are really, really multi-layered, and even with that age, they are perfect fit to a lot of dishes out there in combination with meat, which we normally have quite a lot of here in this area. So thanks a lot, Johannes, for your explanation and sharing your insights on this flight of blaufraenkisch. Yeah. So just to sum up, I think we had 3 flights with white wine. We had 1 flight with blaufraenkisch. So we covered all of the grape varieties reflected in the Leithaberg DAC definition. And at least for me, all the 16 wines had one common feature, and we discussed it already. It's this minerality, it's this freshness, it's this elegancy in the wines, which you just can find here in the Leithaberg region. And I hope all of you enjoyed this tasting, you enjoyed the sharing of insights of our wine growers. And of course, if you still have any questions, no problem. Don't hesitate to note the questions either still in the chat channel or via email to Piotr, whoever. We will try to answer all the best on it. And I hope to see a lot of Leithaberg wines in Poland. And I'm personally looking forward for the next masterclasses we are going to plan together with Piotr on an interesting topic. Yeah.
Good news. Thank you very much, Georg. It was very, very nice tasting. And, well, yes, it was a very difficult day, you know, because we have here, today is something we called Aschermittwoch. I don't know, how do you call it in German?
It's the same. We call it Aschermittwoch, and you normally should step back a little bit. But I think if this is the way to step back, especially under these times, that's the way I'm looking forward. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, proszę Państwa, let me say a few words in Polish. Proszę Państwa, dziękuję wszystkim za obecność. Prawie nikt nie wyszedł, to jest dobra wiadomość. I zapraszamy za miesiąc 12 grunerów z Weinviertel, a potem w kwietniu Kremstal, and let's hope next month some tasting from Burgenland. Yeah, right.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye. Have still a nice day. Thank you.
Bye bye. Dziękujemy.